Undertone, that movie that A24 was like, yeah, it's so scary! And we only post the creepy sounds at 3 a.m. So when my ass wakes up at fucking 6 a.m. to go to work and open my phone, the first thing I see on the Instagrams is, you know, while I'm like in the bathroom in the dark. Anyway, yeah, so Undertone, it's a movie about scary sound and ooky spooky, all that stuff. So I felt that movie was kind of like, in all honesty, like mid. I gave it like 3 stars because it also kind of like reminded me of that movie Monolith from a few years ago, which is kind of similar, which is like it's a person with a podcast kind of thing. Why do I got this kind of like Pennywise shit going on? I've literally just started watching. I'm almost done watching Welcome to Deary, and my hair was like, let's go Pennywise. You know? There you go. Yeah. Yeah, can you see? Can you see how I color my hair? Can you see what gets bleached properly and then what doesn't? Yeah. People are like, oh my god, you do your own hair? Can you not tell? Anyway, so, like I said, it reminds me of the movie Monolith from a few years ago. I think it was from 2023. And it was something similar. Like I said, it's a woman with a podcast. She hears a crazy sound kind of stuff. Whereas Monolith ended up being like aliens, which I was like, okay, you know. And then this one was just like ooky spooky, you know, like demonic spirit kind of shit, you know. I guess, oops, spoilers. But yeah, I guess I'll go into the movie a little more. So, it's a podcast between like 2 friends, and you only see 2 people on screen, which is the main character and her mother, who is comatose. You know, which sucks, you know, and she's obviously like her mom's caregiver and whatever not, and for some reason every time they film their, you know, podcast, it's always at 3 a.m, which also made me understand why A24 was like, let's post at 3 a.m. Besides it being the spooky hour, it was also like, fuck it, that's, you know, what it is in the movie. I was gonna say I'm in like a similar situation, but I'm like, no, my mother is not comatose. I do take care of my mother. No, I don't have a podcast, you know? Yes, I do kind of stay up till 3 a.m., but that's just because I'm making, you know, weird art and all that shit. Anyway, so, imagine me with a podcast. I talk enough. We do not need me to have a podcast. We do not, there's too much talking. Anyway, so, it's her and her friend, and it's just like them with their podcast, and apparently the podcast is called Undertone, and it's kind of like almost kind of like a Ryan and Shane kind of thing, if you know, like, you know, Ghost Files, or I guess it used to be BuzzFeed, you know, those guys, you know, where it's like one's a skeptic, the other one, you know, believer kind of stuff, where like she's the skeptic, the guy's the believer, they hear these crazy sounds, you know, she's always like, oh, it's the pipes, it's an old house, it's settling, da-da-da, you know, all that stuff. Whereas the friend is like, oh my god, it's the thing, you know. So in this movie, it's obviously, you know, just how a lot of these movies are. She slowly turns like to a believer because, you know, weird shit is happening in her home as well. And this movie does this thing where, you know, there's a lot of like scenes that run really long, like almost like David Lynch style, where like you know, this is the scene, here we are just watching someone just kind of like reacting to their computer screen kind of thing, or just sitting there listening, you know. But this movie decides to, like, instead of just keeping it static, like I said, David Lynch style, it loves to do these like slow pans. And while it's doing that, you're thinking they're trying to telegraph a jump scare. And mind you, the entire movie, you're kind of like waiting for a jump scare. And it doesn't really actually happen. It's just panning. Do you remember, like, the Paranormal Activity 3, where it was supposed to be, like, back in the 80s or something, and they had, like, that one camera that did that in the kitchen, you know, and then every time it came back over, something, like, you're like, oh, there's not, all the furniture's gone, oh my god, there's someone under a sheet, you know. But nothing would happen. So it was just kind of like keeping things, like having motion happening on the screen for the audience to not get bored by, which that's what I think, you know. I mean, it's it's a decent choice to do that because something is happening. At the same time, I mean, also at the same time, it does help build tension. That's one reason why I didn't like downright hate this movie, as I saw a lot of people like get really like, you know, like fuck this movie kind of shit, was because it was really good at building that tension where you're like, is there gonna be a jump scare? But even when you go, oh, is there gonna be a jump scare? It's never like, oh, it's like you're like, is there gonna be? Is it no? You're still kind of like, I don't know, dude. You know. So it was good at that. At least you're just like, yo, what's happening? Especially as you're going further and further along to the movie. So they hear that they get this email. There's 10 audio files on it and all that shit. And as you know, the audio files, you know, as they progress on, things get weirder and weirder. It starts off as like someone being like, like to their significant other or something, like, you talk in your sleep, I'm gonna record it. Oh my god, babe, don't, that's so silly. Oh my god, let me hear it. You know, that kind of stuff. And at first it's like, you know, fine, whatever, right? You know, weird stuff. And then it turns into like backward speak, and you're like, what? What's that? So, you know, the two, like the two podcast friends are like, you know, like looking up like, oh, you know, like nursery rhymes or something when you were little, and it'd be played backwards, and the girl's like, Baba Black Sheep, and it all like it connected back in the end with Baba Black Sheep, because like you listen to it and it's like, lick the wounds, and it's like, what in the fucking old school thing? Oh, you play this Black Sabbath record, you know, I was like, oh my god, are we doing? I'm like, what is this? You know. And they're like, oh, well, the guy was like, well, I played in reverse, i.e. forwards. He's like, oh, it says, like, come on in, abu gooba dibba or something like that. And it was like, okay. If I heard that, I'd be like, what the fuck? Apparently that's a real thing. It's some kind of demon thing. Apparently it's like a demon thingy-majig that, like, preys on, like, pregnant people or whatever not. And it's like, oh, good, this movie's really trying to draw me in with that shit. And then the main character woman, it doesn't say, like, what she has done in her life. Like, she's just like, obviously she comes from like a religious household, because there's all like the Jesus shit in the house, and you know she's like praying with her mom or whatever not. But then she you know, finds herself like puking and all that stuff, and she's like, oh, BT dubs, I'm preggers. None of the movie is ever outside of the house, which I also find interesting. That is a bottle thing where it's just inside the house. You know, she's calling for like a doctor's appointment, and then, you know, you're just guessing it's a day or two later, and then, you know, she got a call from the doctor's office, which I found funny. It was at 3 a.m. again, and they were like, oh, I'm sorry, I was gonna leave you a message. Like, why were... Anyway, they were like, hey, guess what? Positive, you preggers. And she's like, I'm gonna need some time to think about that. Not this bitch. This bitch would be like, aborto, you know? Not that I have the capacity for pregnancy, but that's not the point. Oh my god, if that were to happen, I'd be like, how? All that shit is, you know, necrotic down there. Anyway, I'm like, so, you know, she's like, I'm gonna think about it. And later she ends up getting an abortion. You know, she like whispers to her mom, like, Mother, I'm preggers. I don't know what to do. I don't think I'd be a good mother, kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, you have a podcast, you know. And then she's like, going to clinic, and then she's like, well, scooped it out. That's so fucked up to say. But anyway, so you know, like I said, as the movie progresses, things get creepier, like lights in the house start flickering, you know, like weird shit starts happening where you're like, oh god, like, you know. And as they progress more in listening to the audio files, mind you, this whole thing was supposed to be like one episode, or not one episode, or like part 2 or 3, you know, like a 3-parter episode. And they're always like, I'll talk to you in a few days, but their podcast is also like, release new episodes every Friday. It's like, are you like so backlogged that, you know, you can just release and then take your time? I don't know. Like, I don't plan any of this shit out. I just go, this movie's enough for me to talk about, you know, then I do it. And if I don't, I don't. And then, yeah. Anyway, so that was like a funny thing where she's like, oh my god, I'm gonna need some time. Like, can we like, are you free like in a few days or something? You know, like that kind of shit. And again, I get it. They have the podcast and they also have day jobs kind of stuff. Well, the guy has a day job. She's her mom's caregiver. Anyway. So, you know, they're just like, oh my god, thank you, listeners. And I love how they I love how they do have, like, their radio voice, you know? They'll go from being like, dude, I don't know, like, this is funny, da-da-da, to being like, on today's podcast, we are going to be talking about, you know? It's like, I would call it I used to do customer service, I had the retail voice, so, you know, I would just be like, yo, shut the fuck up! Like, my accent would be like, yo, get the fuck out of my face, shut up! But, hello? Hi! This is Joe, what can I help you with? Okay, you know what, let me just put you on a brief hold, you know, and I'd be like, hey, what did I fucking say? I'd be like, thank you for holding. All right, so now I'm looking. Okay, yeah, you know, like, oh yeah, I had to do the phone stuff, I had to do the email stuff, the in-person shit, customer service, you know, had to hide my voice, be like, I'm a woman, rather than whatever the fuck this kind of deep, bassy shit is. Anyway, so yeah, they, like I said, as the movie progresses, and there's one part where I went, oh hell nah, which is, I think the girl was done with, again, one of the audio files. Like I said, there's 10, so I think they were about like halfway or something, and like, you know, lights in the house flicker and stuff, and then she looks over and her mom is like standing in the doorway, but like with her back like 3/4 to her, and I was like, hell nah, we've established this bitch is comatose, you know, and it's like, I was like, no. I was like, no. I was like literally watching it like, no. Because she could turn around and go, Wah! Like that. And I got a good sound system, you know, the sound is up. Or am I not going to get jump scared? And then my mother will just, you know, come in just to be like, hey, there's something weird with my phone. You know, my mom will be like, I think the Wi-Fi on my tablet isn't working. Could you help me? And I'm like, you know, lights are off, all that shit, you know? So, I think I was watching this movie, I think I was more scared, like, worried about my mom, like, coming in, you know, that she'll scare me more than the movie scaring me. Type of shit, you know? Mom, no, I'm not doing anything weird, Mom. Anyway, so, like, at one point in one of the audio files, the girl who's like, speaks in her sleep kind of thing, you know, she's like, whatever backward shit she's saying. And then she's like, oh no, like something along the lines of like, whoever's gonna hear this kind of thing. Kind of like The Ring, you know, where it's like, you won't be affected unless you watch it. Whereas this is like, you know, you're not affected unless you hear all the stuff, because it's like you're listening to it and then now you're kind of like letting the demon enter your space. Which is kind of funny. I kind of wonder, like, is it because it's played mainly on the girl's side? Because it seems like she's the one recording like, she's doing the main recording of the podcast, even though the guy's calling in. I mean, yeah, you know what? Yeah, because, like, the guy is calling her computer, and that's how they're doing it. So I guess that's why she's affected by it. Because I'm wondering, like, why wasn't the guy affected? Because the dude is like, I don't know, dude, I'm fine, you know? Or, like, there's one part where they're like, hey, we were recording this at, like, 9 p.m. or something, which was weird. Like, I don't know. I mean, even when it's, like, summer, when it's 9 p.m., like, it was, like, still light out. It was, like, the 6 p.m. lighting. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh, it's 9 p.m., but they're like, oh, weird, my computer glitch. It says it's 3 a.m., you know? Huh, that's strange. I wonder why. Oh, you know, they're like, oh, computer glitch, but she's looking at like the wall clock in her kitchen. It's like, that says 3 a.m., bitch. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, like, as the movie progresses, it's just like insane, you know, and then like more crazy stuff happens. It's like, you know, and mind you, while they're listening to the audio stuff, I don't know, for some reason, she breaks out some crayons and starts drawing. And I thought it was weird initially, before you learn about the whole, like, this demon, like, goes after pregnant people or babies and stuff, that she was breaking out the crayons. There's nothing wrong with that. Bitch, you want to break out the crayons, you want to break out the crayons. But I just thought, like, usually, you know, it'd be a pen and paper, you're doodling as you're, like, listening to stuff, you know, when people, they're in meetings and stuff. But she broke out the crayons, whatever. But then, like, then it became, like, she's just, like, frantically drawing. And it's like, what the fuck, you know, then she's drawing the babies, and then she's drawing dead babies, and then oh god, and all of a sudden, the house up the stairs are more babies, and you're like, what the fuck, you know, and then it's like, and it's like, it's the build up, and mind you, as I was about to hit the third act, because there was, like, the last third of the movie was left in the progress bar, and I was like, and I had to realize I had to take out the recycling. I was like, shit, you know? I was like, okay, before we hit the crazy, before the, oh god, the babies, before the whole realization that they're babies, it was like we're hitting the climax. I was like, I have to go outside in the dark and take out the recycling. And I was like, ah, shit. You know, I go downstairs and my mom just like on the tablet, like, oh, okay, yeah, everything's out there. Just pull the bin out. And I'm like, okay. And I go out there and like pushing the bin out, and then I heard a sound and I like just stopped and looked. And I live on a busy street, so it was just a car, like the light went green, and the car went, and I was like, oh, okay, and I kept walking. I got back in the house, and my mom was like, why'd you stop? And I was like, I heard a sound, it's fine. I'm watching a scary movie. You know, don't mind me, I'm gonna finish watching a scary movie. So anyway, so the movie, like, pretty much, you know, it ends with, like, the mom not being in the bed. Like, the girl goes up, like, said, dead baby's in bed. The mom doesn't, you know, the mom's no longer in the bed. What the fuck, comatose. She sees, like, the friggin' Mary, I'm just gonna say it's a Mary sculpture, and the sculpture was weird, because at one point I was like, ooh, looking, and she sees it, and then the mom is like, you see from, like, the reflection of the mirror, the mom is, like, in the bathroom, and she's like, mom, ah! And then, like, because the mom, like, turns around, and it's, like, about to come at her, and, ah! And then it just goes to dark, so you don't even see, like, it attacking, you're just like, what the fuck, ah! And it's just black, while during the screaming, too, and I'm like, what? It kind of fell flat with that, you know? Like, the idea, the marketing was great for this movie, mind you. I think the marketing for this movie was great. Spooky sounds, all that stuff. But just the whole, like, it just, like, certain things were, like, crayons, babies, you know, and it was just kind of like, a lot of things kind of fell flat with this movie. Like, I don't hate it. Like I said it was kind of mid. It's a good idea. It's also something kind of like, you know, it's A24, so it's very, like, low budget, all that stuff. You know, the fact that it's like a bottle movie, and the idea of it, it's not bad, you know, but again, like, I don't know what else could have been done better for it, but, you know, like I said, I don't hate it. It's a good try, you know? I actually thought this movie was gonna go in, like, the direction of Skinamarink or something. From I was looking at reviews on Letterboxd, and you either had people who were like, fuck yeah, this is, like, the shit, or you had other people be like, this is lame, and it was very much like when Skinamarink came out, and I was like, oh, I thought it was gonna be a movie where I was like, okay, fuck you, movie, but you know what? I'm gonna give you a high score because you understood how to fuck, okay, you know, I thought it was gonna be like that, but instead it was like, oh, okay, and like I said, I think I was more scared of my mom just, like, bursting through my door to be like, my phone is acting funny, or like, hey, have you seen this thing? It's an AI dog, you know, doing jumping jacks, and it's like, mom, please stop looking at that stuff, you know, so I thought it would be like that, the thought of my mom, or like me going outside with a recycle bin, you know, startled me more than the movie itself. But, I mean, hey, the Backrooms is coming out, like, soon, so bless, you know, because let's hope it's as good as, they let Kane do his thing, let's hope he did it, they let him, like, do his thing, you know, but anyway, so, Undertone, whatever. Camera is at 0%, and it's overheating, wow, look at that.